How many ways can we categorize vampire movies? Quite a few it seems. This week, we'll look at the top 10 vampire comedy movies.
Vampires are some of the oldest monsters ever to grace the silver screen, so vampire movies have seemingly been around forever. Starting in the silent era, the undead bloodsuckers have been giving us nightmares for over 100 years. Of course, with a whole century's worth of films, some of them are bound to, if you'll pardon the expression, suck, and many of them do. There are quite a few gems, too. For every classic like The Lost Boys, there's an equally good or better vampire movie that nobody talks about. This list will help to shed some light, but not sunlight, on some of the lesser-known, underrated vampire movies. Here are some cult classics that you can really sink your fangs or teeth into. Vampire comedies can be tricky. Go too goofy, and you end up with something abysmal like 1995's Mel Brooks spoof Dracula, Dead and Loving It. Not goofy enough, and you end up with something weird like Eddie Murphy's Vampire in Brooklyn from the same year. Luckily, 1979's Love at First Bite gets it just right. It's a typical vamp out of Romania premise where Dracula, George Hamilton, finds himself evicted from his castle in Transylvania and is forced to take refuge in modern-day New York City, where he falls for the reincarnation of a long-lost love.
Oh my, are you biting me? Oh.
Some of the jokes might seem cheesy by today's standards, but by and large, Love at First Bite remains one of the best comedic vampire movies to ever come out of Hollywood's love affair with the charismatic revenants. Number 10. Transylvania 6-5000.
I'm investigating Frankenstein.
You mean the monster?
And a terrible secret lurks in the shadows.
I'm terribly sorry. We thought you were an animal.
Tabloid reporters Jack Harrison and Gil Turner are sent to Transylvania with two choices: find the Frankenstein monster or find new jobs. But before the jumpy journalists can dig up their big story, they must first face the horrors of an extremely clumsy butler, a nymphomaniac vampiress, and a semi-mad doctor, as well as assorted mummies, werewolves, and more Transylvanian oddballs. Can these two bumbling heroes unravel this monstrous mystery, or are they in for some very scary surprises? Number 9. Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
You have been chosen, Buffy,
To do what?
to stop the vampires.
Does Elvis talk to you?
Before Sarah Michelle Gellar played the ditzy but dangerous Buffy Summers for 7 seasons on television, blonde beauty Kirsty Swanson originated the role in the 1992 film of the same name. More of a comedy than the series ever was, Buffy is a satire of early 90s vapid, Valley Girl cheerleaders and what would happen if one of them suddenly had to go out and kill a butt-ton of vampires. While it will never achieve the popularity of some better-known vampire movies or its beloved spin-off, Buffy the Vampire Slayer is still worth a watch if only for the excellent performances from Hollywood legends Donald Sutherland, Rutger Hauer, and the recently passed Paul Rubens.
Number 8. Martin.
My name is Martin. I'm 84 years old. People think I'm crazy when I tell them how old I am.
In 1977, horror maestro George Romero traded in the flesh-eating zombies he was most associated with for a different kind of undead creature. Martin is unlike any of the other vampire movies on this list, as it might not actually be about a vampire, at least not in the traditional sense. Martin is a psychological thriller about a young man who may or may not be afflicted with vampirism. For most viewers, the fun of watching Martin comes from trying to decide if he's really afflicted by vampirism or if, instead, his craving for blood stems from homicidal delusions brought about by some kind of mental illness. The movie is interesting for how different it is from the rest of Romero's filmography, to say nothing of vampire movies in general. Number 7. Stakeland.
I was like any other kid. I didn't believe in the boogeyman. Then the world woke up to a nightmare.
Stakeland is what happens if you take vampires and treat them like zombies. Set in a post-apocalyptic world overrun by vampires, Stakeland is a brutal, visceral thriller that doesn't skimp on the blood and guts. A young boy is led by his mentor through a North America decimated by a vampire plague. On their way to Canada's New Eden, the pair have to deal with hordes upon hordes of bloodsuckers. Released in 2011, Stakeland is unique as far as vampire movies go for being one of the only films to treat vampires like a roving group of rabid fiends rather than the mostly solo killers they are in other media.
Number 6, From Dusk Till Dawn.
I'm going to ask you one question, and all I want is a yes or no answer. Do you want to live through this?
From the twisted minds of Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez comes a bloody hybrid that's half crime movie and half vampire gorefest. If you've ever wondered how Tarantino's particular brand of dialogue would pair with the most grotesque vampires imaginable, then this is the movie for you. One of George Clooney's early film roles, 1995's From Dusk Till Dawn, follows two criminal brothers as they hold a family hostage and use their RV to sneak across the US border into Mexico. Once across the border, a stop off at a Mexican dive bar for celebratory drinks turns into a feast of practical horror effects that rival The Thing in their brutal savagery. This is not a movie for the squeamish. Number 5, Monster Squad.
Us. We're the Monster Squad.
Good and evil are in constant flux back and forth.
While it's not a vampire movie in the strictest sense, 1987's Monster Squad features Count Dracula in a large role, so we'll allow it. When Dracula gets the gang back together, the film also features the Wolfman, the Mummy, Gilman, and Frankenstein in modern-day suburbia. It's up to a group of tweens to stop him. Calling themselves the Monster Squad, the group of horror movie-obsessed kids use every bit of useless knowledge gleaned from years of comic books and movies to defeat Dracula and the other monsters, from using a magical amulet to plunge the world into 100 years of darkness. Monster Squad might not be the best vampire movie on this list, but it is the only one that proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that the Wolfman definitely has nards.
Number 4, Near Dark.
Sure haven't met many girls like you.
No, you haven't met any girls like me.
Ask a film nerd about vampire movies, and they will inevitably mention how, of the two vampire movies released in 1987, Kathryn Bigelow's Near Dark is the superior film. And while it's hard to consider the other movie, The Lost Boys, anything other than a stone-cold classic, there is some merit to the argument that it unfairly overshadows its lesser-known sibling. Acting as a kind of pseudo-western, Near Dark follows a young man named Caleb, Adrian Pasdar, as he falls in with a group of vampire nomads traveling through the desert led by Lance Henriksen's Jesse. While the film might not be as flashy and fun as Lost Boys, its gritty depiction of wandering vampires who travel in an RV wreaking havoc wherever they go deserves to be held in the same regard. Number 3, Fright Night.
Is that a vampire cannot enter your house without being invited by the rightful owner first.
This is our next door neighbor, Jerry Dandridge.
What's he doing here?
I invited him over for a drink.
Another vampire movie on the list from the 80s, arguably the best decade for vampire movies, Fright Night has everything anyone could ever want from a vampire movie and then some. Fright Night has scenes that are laugh-out-loud hilarious, as well as scenes of genuine terror that will make you jump in your seat. The movie is much like From Dusk Till Dawn, a buffet of practical horror effects, from some truly inspired creature designs to shots of belly-churning gore. Mild-mannered Charlie thinks his new next-door neighbor is a vampire and goes out of his way to prove it. Once exposed, Jerry Dandridge proves to be a bigger threat than Charlie could have ever anticipated, leading him to beg actor Peter Vincent, famous for playing a vampire hunter on a local TV show called Fright Night, to help him stop the blood-sucking fiend. A cult hit, Fright Night deserves more mainstream recognition as one of the best vampire movies of not just the 80s but all time.
Number 2, What We Do in the Shadows.
When you get 3 vampires in a flat, obviously there's going to be a lot of tension.
Follow the lives of Viego, played by Taika Waititi, Deacon, played by Jonathan Brew, and Vladislav, played by Jermaine Clement, 3 flatmates who are just trying to get by and overcome life's obstacles like being immortal vampires who must feast on human blood. Hundreds of years old, the vampires are finding that beyond sunlight catastrophes hitting the main artery, and not being able to get a sense of their wardrobe without a reflection, modern society has them struggling with the mundane like paying rent, keeping up with the chore wheel, trying to get into nightclubs, and overcoming flatmate conflicts. Number 1, Innocent Blood.
I'll swing on you.
I'm a girl.
Some girl.
Marie has two appetites, sex and blood. Her career as a vampire is going along fine until two problems come up. She is interrupted while feeding on Sal, the shark, Maselli, and she begins to develop a relationship with the policeman who has been trying to put Sal away. Sal wakes up in the morgue very confused and very thirsty. He goes back to his old haunts and begins to create an organized crime family of vampires while Marie and her policeman lover hunt him. That was our show for today. What do you think? Did you agree with our list? Are there other vampire comedies we could have mentioned that deserve to be on this list? Let us know in the comments section, and while you're at it, I'd consider it an honor if you subscribe to my channel, share this video, and check out my own Carl Vincent Vampire Hunter franchise, also in the comments section. Until next time, this is Andrew in for Kevin Gibbons saying live long and prosper, may the force be with you, and keep reaching for the stars.